All right, we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Virtual Millionaire Show. I'm your host, Michael McDonald, and I'm coming back to you with another episode here with a very special guest. I have with me today Damon Hart. Damon, what's up, man? How you doing today?
What's up, Michael? Man, I'm doing great, brother. Southern California, and really good to see you.
Yeah, well, I heard you guys got a lot of rain in Southern California lately. Did you get hit with all that rain?
Did we? Yo, when they say there's no rain, you ever heard that song? No rain in Southern California. You ever heard that song?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, it's like an R&B song, but there's a lot of rain in Southern California, and I feel like we've had every last bit of it the last like year and a half. So
No,
yeah,
man,
man.
I get it. Like I'm in Vegas and people think it never rains out here.
Right.
And recently it's been raining quite a bit. I think we've been getting hit with some of your storm, but no, 9 times out of 10, no, it's beautiful out there. So how, for people who don't know you, man, like how did you get into real estate? How did you get to where you're at today? Because obviously we're all on this journey. And so
Sure.
let's take people back. Like you saw the title, Caribbean Roots.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, man. How did you grow up? And let's start right there, and then we'll work into
Oh man.
your journey.
Dude, yeah. So thank you. So like, my mom's gonna hate me for saying this, but I had like the most island experience. I tell the story. I didn't wear shoes a lot when I was little. I used to just run around the yard. I don't think you have to be from the islands to do that, but I just didn't like wearing shoes when I was growing up. So my mother said, "Don't tell people that," but I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I lived in St. Thomas, which is a territory of the U.S., kind of like Puerto Rico, you know. So I lived there until I was about 5 or 6 years old. And then we moved to New York City, and I had a great childhood, bro. I really did. You know, my mom was a single mom most of my life until she got married to my stepdad, who's awesome, and it's his birthday today. But you know, I just had a good life, man, and I got into real estate kind of later in life, I guess, like my mid 20s, after trying to get into the job market after college, and just
Hmm.
decided I wanted to do something else. So that's my story.
Okay. Well, man, that's a quick version of your story. I remember when we talked on the phone, um, we went deep, but we're gonna get deep today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lessons. Obviously, we're gonna unpack. We're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. By the
You're
way, guys, if
excited.
you're
Yeah,
tuning
you're
in live,
excited. Okay.
share this out, tell a friend. Damon's gonna be dropping some heat today, and
Ready.
so exactly, yeah, dropping some heat today. So for people, so you started in the Caribbean. Obviously,
Right.
you moved to the States. Where did you move, and at what point did you realize that this real estate investing thing was going to potentially work for you? Because you took a pretty big leap of faith, if I remember right, in your conversation about
Sure.
how you took a different path than maybe what was most people would take, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I think starting out, I always had an interest in real estate, and it goes back. I can think back as far as like when I was a kid. We would play board games at like holidays and like Christmas, especially birthdays, and we'd always play Monopoly. That was my favorite. So it sounds kind of cliche, but I used to kill at Monopoly.
Yeah.
So, I was like, this real estate thing is cool because you could start out with like $1,000, and then by the end you could be like 10,000, 15,000, depending on how long you played. So I like that. And when I got out of high school, so I lived in New York City, and a lot of concrete, a lot of jungle, all that. And then we ended up moving to the suburbs in a place called East Brunswick, and I lived in East Brunswick pretty much till I graduated high school. And it was good for me, I thought, because I got to see, I lived in the Caribbean where it's kind of like, Caribbean life. Like it's small, everybody knows everybody. Then you go to New York, nobody gives a crap about who you are or what you're doing. They could care less. And
Right.
then the suburbs is kind of like a little in between, right? It's kind of like not islandy, but at the same time, everybody kind of knows you. So I graduated high school, then I went on to college. I studied accounting. A lot of people don't know that about me. I was a little bit of a nerd around the numbers,
Okay.
um, but I enjoyed that. And then after I got out of college, I said, what did I want to do? And I think I started there in college because I used to work for a couple of banks. I worked for a bank and did a lot of their financial stuff. And you would not believe how many bankers, what they would spend their money on. Because I would kind of pay the books. Like these bankers they would lunch, they would sponsor golf events, suits. Everything was paid for by the business, and it would just blow my mind because it was just like all this money coming in, and the guys are all spending it, right?
They're spending a lot of it, right?
It was spending a lot of it, exactly. So that was an education. I thought to myself, but I would always I think I would always see, all the books, like how they would make a lot of their interest, and it was all off of loans, and the majority of them were on, real estate. That's how they make most of their money. So that kind of piqued my interest.
From the properties.
Yeah, that kind of piqued my interest in the beginning. But it wasn't until after I left there, after college, I said, you know what? I'm going to take a look at this real estate thing. And that's kind of where I started to jump in after that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did not know that. That is so cool. Did you get your accounting degree then?
Oh, yeah. I got an accounting degree. I don't know where it is. It's sitting in my mom's house somewhere with my high school diploma.
Yeah,
but I could go on.
Honestly, you're a 1%er. Somebody who actually went to college and got your degree and who is running a successful business. A lot of people I talk to, man, you'd be surprised. Like maybe they didn't finish college, or maybe they just took a different path or decided halfway through it that it wasn't for them. And so you finished college, you got that experience, you have that, and then you started seeing how these guys were making their money. So that piqued the interest, right? Mm-hmm. So then what did you do with that? Like what happened next?
Yeah. So, as a traditional family would want you to do when you go to college, spend all that money, they want you to go get a job. So that's what I did. I went out. I didn't get a job in accounting because honestly, I kind of, by the time I was a senior, I fell out of love with what accounting was as much as one person could, I think. And then after that, I got more into, sales. So I got my first job with an insurance company and trying to do sales for them. And I did that for about 6 months. And I didn't like that insurance. Imagine me.
Take some grit.
Yeah. Talk about dry, and no offense to anybody watching insurance, but watching that does insurance, but you know it's boring. You know it is. Okay. Everybody knows it is. So I did that for I probably did that for about 6 months or so, 8 months. And then I said, you know what? I had enough guts to kind of quit, but I went to a different job. And then when I did that job for a little bit, I was working for a startup at the time, but it just didn't feel right. It was exciting and all that stuff, but it just didn't feel right. So I got up enough guts to go work for a mortgage company, which was totally different. And I started doing mortgages there. And at that point, once I got into the mortgage business, things started to click for me. Because my specialty was I would work with all the investors. Okay.
Yeah.
I would see these guys make $60,000, $70,000 rips off of a sale, and it was just like, how'd you do that? And I made, I would just load on they didn't care what I was making. They just knew they were going to make their 60 as long as you got the deal done. I was like, shoot, I got to be on the other side of this thing.
What year was this? When people
this was probably right before 2008. So this is like, I was maybe like my mid 20s. It was like 2004, 2005. Things were it was cooking in that time because like no one had to qualify for anything. So we were just nonstop, just doing loan after loan after loan. And I was working with mostly investors because in my mind, why would I work with one person that's just going to buy one house where I could work with one guy and he's going to buy 5 or 6 throughout the year? Duh.
Smart man. Right? Smart man. Yeah. Figured that out quick. But that was 2008. What happened in 2008? For people who are listening here, what happened after that?
Dude, man, 2008. If you were a little person or you weren't even alive yet, you're watching this, I'm going to tell you, for me, what happened in 2008 is I was in that industry and then everything just started to crumble. But by then, I had already bought my first home. I was the first person in my family, my immediate family anyway, to buy a house. Okay, I bought a 2-family house. I'll never forget it. It was in Jamesburg, New Jersey. Okay, I lived upstairs, and I lived my first tenant lived downstairs. And I remember, quitting my job because I was going to go 100% real estate. I quit my job, had my tenant downstairs. I lived upstairs, and what happened in 2008 is that everything screeched to a halt. There was no more mortgages happening. There was no more industry. Everything just kind of slowed. The collapse of 2008, and at that point, things really started to get hard for me because I didn't have a job. Number one, right? And I tell this story all the time. It's like I did not have a job. I didn't have a way to get income. I had bought assets, which were really liabilities because I had financing on them.
At the wrong time too. Like you didn't know that, but you bought them in 2008, right?
100%. And nobody knew, right? And
Nobody
the thing
knew.
is, and the thing is about, that I can look back on now, it's over 20 years probably almost. It's like I bought an asset that wasn't, I bought it at the high, but it wasn't an asset that would cash flow the way I financed it. So, people are scared of that now. It's like, oh, I don't know if I should buy it because as long as it cash flows, it doesn't matter what the price is at, right? So I didn't know that back then. So I made the mistake. I wasn't cash flowing. I was losing money, couldn't afford it. So every month the bank was asking me for payment. I didn't have it. So I ended up with that house. I ended up going through a bankruptcy. I went into foreclosure, and foreclosure first, then bankruptcy, and then it was a really shitty next like 4 years. To be honest, it was a really bad time because when you don't have money, you don't have money coming in. It was very difficult for me. So
Yeah. We were talking about smiling before this. I'm sure when you're in that situation, it's a little tougher to be excited, right?
yeah,
But it's the reality, man. And I appreciate you for sharing that because I think people do never take action because they hear stories like that.
sure.
But if you ask me, your success story, because you went through that, that was a lesson. Like that was a lesson that you learned. We talked a lot about this offline. And really who you are today is probably a big part of you going through that journey, right? So the next 4 years were tough.
Say again.
The next
Tough?
4 years were tough, like challenging, probably understatement, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. But to your point, I like that part, but I also think there's some you can learn from my mistake and kind of do it in a different way. I say for anyone that's like wanting to get into the business, like I would recommend, if you want to get into real estate and you think, or you want to get into any business, anything, it doesn't have to just be real estate, but any business, though I can speak on real estate because I have the most experience there, is it really would, I think, don't cut your cash flow off before you can get into that business. And it sounds kind of like, well, who would do that? I would do that. And I'm a pretty smart guy, degree and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I would probably tell people don't do it because if you have the pressure of not having an income coming in, plus having to create new income and also learn the business, super tough. Super tough.
So you're saying get some data, get some cash flow, get some experience in the business before you just quit your job and dive headfirst in.
100%. And I'll take it even further. Get some success in it first. Like, like people, I hear this all the time, and it scares me because I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna be boss. We're gonna be a boss. It's kind of like Insta boss, right? Like I was doing a little show last night, and one of the guests was talking about like, yeah, people now almost seem like they just want to be bosses because they know it's the cool thing to say. But the reality is, the boss is a very heavy role to handle, and sometimes you might not be qualified to be the boss just yet. Especially starting out. If you never did a real estate deal, guess what? You're up against me, Mike. You're up against a bunch of people that have done transactions. So are you really a boss just yet? Probably not. So it's like
so good. Like sorry to interrupt you, man. I gotta say this because a lot of times people think that they're trading this job for the ultimate freedom, right, out of the gate. But reality is it's going to take some time to really build a business that's going to give you that freedom. And you got to be prepared for that. But what a lot of people find is 2-3 years into the business, they're working more hours. They're getting paid less than what they were working at their full-time job.
100%.
But if you don't have that extra income and security, it's going to be really stressful. right?
Right.
So you
Right.
gotta have that fine balance, master the craft, right? And this is contrary to what I did. Like I was kind of in your shoes, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I figured out how to do some deals, but I quit before I had any cash flow. I quit
Mm-hmm.
my full-time job before I had any cash flow at all,
Mm-hmm.
and I still had debt. So there was some pressure, but thankfully I figured it out, right?
Sure, sure. And I would say this, man, like, I'm just one Fox's advice, right? Like I'm telling people something that I would give them advice on, but everybody's different. But I'm going to say for most people, because most people aren't built like, and I don't say this to be, egotistical. Not everybody is like me or like you. Most people are going to, and I did, even when I left my job, I went back to another job, not the same job, but I went back to a job because I needed cash flow.
Right.
And if you don't figure those things out, I would say your chances of success, because the reason you're doing it at the end of the day is you want to get out, you want to have financial freedom, you want to have more, you want to have more income and have time with your family. Maybe it's not just a business. Like start out, just instead of going 100%, start out, build the business in your free time. So if you're working 9 to 5, okay, now instead of watching Netflix or going to your kids' game, sacrifice that for a year or two, and then build your business that way. So that way now you have this, your primary, which is feeding your family, and you have your new business, and that gives you a learning curve where you could be like, all right, now if I decide to take this move, at least you have experience on your side so that you can handle it. I just said, yeah, I did one deal I was in the process of doing one deal and I said, okay, I'm out. I quit.
Wow.
Not the wisest thing to do. Not the wisest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, kudos to you for making it through that. But also, I love how you're now educating and you're now sharing that so other people don't have to go through what you went through during that.
100%.
So if you're listening to this live, you're listening to the replay, please take note of that because you will save yourself from a lot of pain potentially. But don't be afraid. You really got to choose your heart, right?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to give up the Netflix. Don't be afraid to give up the things if you're partying with friends or whatever you're doing on your spare time, and ask yourself, is this getting me closer to my goal? Is this helping me achieve what I'm trying to get to right now? And some people don't want it bad enough to take and remove those things that might be fun or comfortable from their lives. And so you gotta be willing to make that decision.
100%, 100%. And let me tell, and here's one thing I've noticed. No matter what, right? If you want it, you're going to have to do something different than what you're doing right now. Everybody knows that, right? Like
100%.
if you want to have a better body, you got to go to the gym more often and eat better. It's just the way it works. So, if you come to the realization is like, hey, maybe I don't want to have that business. It's not over. Guess what you could do? You could also partner with someone that's actively in the business, and then you could participate in some of the profits that way, and you don't have to give up, all security. Just kind of work with and risk some of the money. Do your education, but you could risk your money and put it with someone that you trust that has a track record and is in the business. You could still participate the same way and learn. And who knows? At some point, you might decide, you know what? This sounds like something I want to do. But it's just the center of everything that I'm just trying to create for everybody. It's like, it's just not the boss thing. I don't think it's the way that not everybody's going to be a boss, 100%, because you all don't want to be. Not everybody wants to be. Some days I don't want to be. It's just the way it is. That's just the honest truth.
It's the truth. Like some days when you get news that you don't want to have, it's like, man, again, what am I doing? Like,
and guess who gets to fix it? The boss.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. You're 100%. The boss. There's 100%. Benefits, and then there's that's just the part of it that nobody really wants to talk about, right?
Yeah, I don't mind talking about it because it's real, man. Like, yeah,
one thing that I love that you said is that maybe you don't want to have a business. Maybe you don't want what we're talking about, and that's totally fine. But maybe somebody like Damon or like me who does just love it. We wake up, we're excited, We're ready to dive in and go build this and go buy properties and flip these things. And you don't have to take on all that risk because you know that we got this deal secured at a good price. You can lend on this deal passively. You can earn a good investment return, and you can be involved with the deal passively, right? You can get that mailbox money without having to go through and deal with contractors and all these
100%.
things. And we're selling a property today that an investor funded for us. He had this money out for 3 weeks. We told him 2 months minimum interest. He'll make $3,500 without lifting a single finger just by wiring money to the bank, getting the wiring instructions and wiring it back. 3 weeks worth of money, $3,500, the easiest money you could ever make in real estate right there.
For sure. Yeah, it's funny. We did a raise for a small project out in St. Petersburg. Similar deal. A group of regular investors that we've had before. We parceled it out. A newer investor who's a good friend of mine. My little brother. I have 2 sisters, but if I had a little brother, this guy would be it. He did a small little investment, just the timing worked out, right?
Nice.
And the thing I noticed is like my one good friend, he's a doctor, and he was saying that he has quite a decent amount of money with a wealth manager, and he's like, my returns with the wealth manager, don't even come close to what you offered me, Damon, and I gotta pay them every month just to manage my money. He has to pay him a check every month just to wealth manage. And I'm just like, okay, not knocking any wealth managers, but that sounds like the coolest hustle there is, because you're using their money. I'm 100% you're invested in a product that you're going to make money off of. But, I just said, look, I can't talk about them, but I know one thing. My returns you're going to be secured against real estate. It's going to be safe. And I think that kind of opened my eyes to like a whole new level, because I've been doing this a while, but I never even thought, and I'm going to be honest, it never cracked my mind to think like, hey, there's a lot of people out there that's sitting with wealth managers or sitting with their money in the bank and not doing anything with it. And I'm over here with all these deals that I can turn into profits for people and share. I have no problem sharing, because I couldn't run out of deals. I cannot run out of deals. And that's the thing that I think is so great about our business, is like you can share, you can, create opportunity. There's so many different ways you can do it. And I think real estate is fantastic. And that's why it's so, so alluring to people. So they're right. But you just have to pick your poison.
I love it, because I don't talk about this concept very often on my podcast. But I want to keep going on this, because a lot of people who probably know you, who probably know me, come to us and they're like, man, how are you buying 20 houses? Like, how did you buy this property with cash? And what I'm open about is that, hey, listen, like, a lot of this isn't my money. Like, these are just people who are excited to park their money in my deals, because it is backed by real estate. It gives them a much better return than they're getting in their bank accounts. Why do you think people don't invest more money with active real estate investors? I mean, the people who know about it, they're probably like, don't tell my friends, because like, I want to fund every one of your deals, right?
Right.
But is it because they don't know? Like, if they have lazy money sitting in a line of credit, if they have lazy money sitting in an old retirement account, they just don't know about it? It's really our obligation, right, to educate these people?
Yeah, I think the latter is more true. It's more our obligation, because for me, a long time, I didn't even think to ask. Right. I didn't even think to ask. I was just more like, I owe hard money or the banks, like one or the other, or we're gonna wholesale it. That's all I ever knew, right? Until one day I actually talked to someone about investing, and they had some experience, and it was actually someone I had purchased their home. And they approached me and said, hey, if you ever have these deals, would you be, open to maybe people investing money? So they approached me.
After you bought their house.
Yeah, after I bought their house. Yeah. And they said, yeah, if you ever need, what would it look like? And we had a couple conversations, and sure enough, we started a relationship, started lending some money, and that's how it all started for us. with those small relationships. And now, to answer your question, I think most people just don't invest because no one goes around telling you that. We don't hear about Foxy, the Foxy Fund, or the McDonald equity group. Like, we don't hear about those things out in the street. We hear about the Vanguards and all these other funds that are groups of people. But what do? They take their money and they just invest it in real estate anyway, and they get fees off of it. You cut out the middleman. They should just come to us. So I think part of it's we gotta do a better job of letting people know. 100%.
100%. And I was gonna ask you, man. So, Mr. Foxy, tell me about that. What's up with Mr. Foxy? I gotta know.
Well, I mean, obviously, for anyone looking, you're just like, man, it's fitting, right? But besides that, man, you know, it all started. So the name of the company started because I was in Jersey at the time, and I was just Damon buys houses, right? And I went to my wife one day and I said, babe, I want to come up with something a little more catchy. I was like, what do you think of sexy home buyer, right? This is my marketing brain in 2006, right? And she says, are you friggin' kidding me? She's like, sexy home buyer? You're going to offend ladies. People are going to take up your signs and you're going to make little kids very uncomfortable. Like, don't do that. So I said, okay. And she's pretty smart. She's a very good marketer. So I said to her, I said, what do you think? She said, all right, give me a little bit. She came up, she said, what about something a little soft like Foxy? And I tried it on for a little bit. And over time, you know, people would just always remember it. It was just like Foxy, Foxy. Because who doesn't want to be Foxy? Who doesn't want to be memorable? And so I think it caught on very early, and I just ran with it. And I just said, well, if we're Foxy Home Buyer, I'm the guy, so I'm Mr. Foxy. And that just stuck. Everywhere I went, it was just Mr. Foxy this, Mr. Foxy that, hey, Foxy. And here we are.
All right. I love it. Well, it is memorable, so I'll give you that. And it's definitely catchy for sure. So now that we have made it through kind of the storyline, right, of how you got into it, some of the things that you went through.
Right.
Like, let's talk about what you're up to today. Like, what is Mr. Foxy up to today? Like, what are you up to? What are you investing in, etc.?
Yeah, so it's constantly evolving. You know, for our core business has always been acquisition of single family assets. We've always done that, you know, always doing the transaction side of it. What we've expanded to and what we're doing a little bit more of now than we have in the past is taking these assets that we're getting at discount prices, instead of, you know, selling them off to other wholesalers or wholesaling the property, selling them off to other investors. We're picking the really choice assets, taking them down, and turning those into small renovation projects and getting them back on the MLS to sell. That's what we're doing. Okay, so it's just your fix and flip, get them back in somewhere safe that we can get them off the market. That's the transaction side. And then what we're looking at as a long-term play is, you already talked about it, just raising more funds. Raising more funds to put into those types of projects that we're working in actively, and then start building for more passive assets like self-storage. That's what we're doing.
I love it. Yeah. So for people who are listening, if you have lazy money and you want to invest with Damon or myself, let us know. We'd love to put your money to work, right? And honestly, again, it's our obligation, and it's like, you know, but you're not telling people to give them the opportunity. So now you guys know, right? You know that what we do and how we can do it. So what's your team look like? How do you do this virtually? Because you're in California.
Yeah, I am.
You do business in Florida. How is that even possible?
Dude, I tell people now, we're in the best time ever in life, because there's so many tools, and every day there's a new tool coming out to just make, you know, virtual, especially since COVID, right? Like, we were virtual before COVID, and then when COVID happened, it's like you said virtual, it's just like basically saying the same thing. You're either in, people aren't alarmed that you're virtual anymore. You know what I mean? That's so right. My team was always virtual. Most of my team is in the Philippines. That's most of our like marketing and support staff. My team has been with me for, some of my team members been with me since like 5 years, 6 years ago. We've been in business like 10. So we have the same core. We do the same thing over and over again, and that's just help the people get to us and figure out a way to solve their problem. So I think my last number, we got downsized a little bit just because of kind of repurposing for some growth, like retooling and shuffling some seats. But I think we're like at 10 or 11 right now, including my TC who's here in the US. And that's it. And yeah, I mean, we'll be looking to hire a new acquisition person here pretty soon. And then also I'm looking for some admin help as well pretty soon as well. So those are like the two things.
So what's your main way of finding these opportunities? Obviously, we're putting our word out there so people know that they can come talk to you or me for help on getting some deals done. But what else are you doing to find deals?
You know what's I'm doing pretty much what's standard for everybody. But you know what my favorite is?
What's that?
My favorite, dude, is once I get someone to be a customer. So I bought their home, right? My favorite is just working that referral source over and over and over again. Because those tend to be the best referrals, and those people are the most happy because they know, there's a level of skepticism when you get with someone that is, getting bombarded with 40 text messages, which we do. We text, we call, all that stuff. But like, when you get that referral from someone, there's just that level of understanding, like, hey, you took care of my friend. I know you can take care of my problem. Let's just figure it out. I love those referrals, man. And I'm sure you do too. So
it's free. And the only thing it takes a little bit of intentionality, right? Because I think you were talking to me offline about this, like how much of an aha it was when you finally just recircled the wagon and you're like, hey, do you know of anybody else who wants to sell? And they're like, you know what, I do. And then you buy a house from that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out on this channel for too long, or maybe you know, if you're watching this, you're really good at that, and that's amazing because it's free.
Yeah, and you know what it does? I think it just overall creates a better customer experience, right? Because once the typical way that we would do it before is like, you would have a conversation with someone, you would buy their home, they loved you, they were super stoked, and then that would be it. And I'm thinking to myself, let's think about this, right? As a business, right? If someone sold me a Mercedes Benz at that dealership and they never call me back again, is it likely that I'm going to go and buy that Mercedes Benz again? Probably not, because they didn't stay in touch. And I may go on to buy 2, 3, 4, 5 Mercedes Benz at some point in my life. But if you don't stay in touch, whose fault is that? And I'm thinking to myself even further, a lot of these times, these things that I helped you with, these assets, these people spent more or earned more money with me than they did with a Mercedes Benz. It was a bigger ticket item.
Right.
So why are we not staying in touch with those people? That to me is crazy. So we just started doing more of it, and it's working.
That's a gold nugget. And a lot of people don't talk about it, because we could have went down the path of, I do texting, I do calling, I'm doing all these things that everyone talks about. But like, I tell people this all the time. Your reputation is everything. If people don't know about you and what you do, it's like, what's the point of having the reputation if nobody's going to know? So you got to tell people, and you got to communicate that message. So that's a gold nugget for sure.
100%. Yeah. One of my favorite mentors told me, hey, when you wake up in the morning, guess what? You're a secret. And it's your job to let everybody know the secret's out of the bag by the end of the day. So,
dude, I love that.
Yeah.
That's the first I've ever heard that before. That's really good.
Hey, you can keep it. Claude Diamond, my buddy.
Surprise, right? Call your friend. This is a reminder. Call your friend, call your family, tell people what's up, tell them how ask them how they're doing, genuinely care. Don't be going to people saying, hey, how can you help me? Right? Like, provide value, and then watch what happens. It's magic.
Magic, for sure.
Awesome, dude. Well, you talked about self-storage. So that's an exciting adventure. Are you actively seeking out in prospecting those opportunities right now, and how's that going? Because I just talked to another buddy about this yesterday, and he's like, "Man,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
So
so much more challenging to find opportunities."
yeah, so we're in the newer stages of that with the self storage, right? That's a new endeavor we just kind of looked at for like going into Q2. So we started the prospecting already. So I don't have a ton of data on it, but what I do know from let's call them associates and people that I have a pretty close relationship with. Yeah, I mean, to me, the business makes sense. Like you don't have to convince me once I hear something that makes sense. You have an asset that doesn't require a toilet, doesn't require maintenance generally, and doesn't have any eviction, and it's in real estate, and you can get cash flow.
Sign me up.
Yeah, like that's it. Like I'm in, right? As long as you can know how to run it, that all makes sense. So to what we've done is just kind of aligned with, the right partnerships to be able to understand that model a little bit better. And like anything else, man, it starts with baby steps. You start and then you progress. I remember when I first started in this, I started with like one deal with my buddy, just referred it to me. I didn't know how to market, didn't know anything. And now look at me, we do a decent amount. Like, I tell people 6 figures every year for the last few years. It's like, and that you kind of do it in your sleep. That was me not raising any money, not doing anything. So I think we're in a really great spot. Everyone in the industry has an opportunity. I just think people have to think a little bit bigger. We have to think a little bit bigger about what we're doing. And it can't just all be about transactions. It has to be about wealth. That's what we got into here. Those little spaces on the Monopoly board, we did it to have a hotel, not just one house. You know what I mean? So we can get the big returns and the big wealth. Because how else are you going to win the game if you don't?
100%. It's so true. And by the way, I love Monopoly too.
Okay.
I play Monopoly every chance I can get. I can't wait for my kids who are 2 and 4 right now to be like into it. Hopefully they are, right?
Hopefully.
Because if you can understand that just the concept, it can transfer over to real life, right?
100%.
And that's buying cash flowing assets.
Yeah.
So if you have questions for Damon, drop them in the comment section right now. And
we're going to do comments. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
right, cool.
Drop your comments below if you have questions for Damon. Bring him on. He's a wealth of knowledge and has a lot of experience, and he's got a lot of lessons, right? And so let's talk about that. While people are getting their brain juices flowing here, what are some lessons that you wouldn't want others to have to go through, aside from maybe some of the things that we've talked about? Biggest lesson. We'll throw one out there.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. I think the biggest lesson coming in, it took me a while. Number one would be definitely if I know it kind of goes without saying, but if you're going to get into a business, it really pays to have a mentor. And here's why. Like, what's a mentor? Like, a mentor is someone that's been there before, that can point you in the right direction and cut down on your learning curve. That's what a mentor is in Damon Hart, Mr. Foxy's definition. Okay. So why is it important to have a mentor? Because you're in a business, and businesses are about making money. Now, the way that you're going to make money is you're either going to spend your time or you're going to spend your money. You want to cut down on both. You invest in a mentor and then get that cut down as fast as you can. Because otherwise, if you do it the other way and try to do, school of hard knocks, figure it out on my own, I'm going to grind from the bottom and get it out the mud, guess what you're going to do? You're probably going to make some progress, 100%, but it's going to take you a lot of time. It's going to take you a lot of money. And that has a value. So I would do that.
That is why we're in business as well. Because it's the same concept with homeowners. They sell to us for the speed and the convenience because maybe they don't have the time. In the beginning, we have some time, but if you want to shortcut that, you're saying find somebody who's doing what you want to do and then follow the path that's already been made.
100%. 100%. If I had done that first 10 years of my business and really
Can't see you, Damon. I think we lost connection. Hopefully it comes back in here. Otherwise, we will have to restart or cut it back and come back in.
That was my only thing.
All right, man. So you're back.
I am.
Cut out there. You cut out there for a little bit, but we're getting close to the end. Anyhow, man, I would love to keep going, but obviously, you know, I gotta get back to it. You gotta get back to it, and then also the connection is a little bit spotty. So let's do this, man. Two things. Where can people learn more about you? And then let's talk about any parting thoughts, any last minute thoughts to leave listeners with. And he's gone. He's gonna come back, guys. We gotta get his words of wisdom before he wraps this thing up here. So